Welcome to the Resilience Living Podcast. I am your host, Terralyn Minifield, excited for another opportunity to talk all things resilient. We here at Resilient Living Podcast want to use all of the information, the challenges, the good things that we've gone through to create a level of wisdom that we are able to share with others. Today is no different. I have a special guest here in the studio. His name is Joe Watson. I've known him for a couple of years now, and I'm excited for him to share all of the details that qualify him for time well spent. So without further ado, I will turn it over to him to allow him to introduce himself. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to this episode. We are so excited to get to learn more about you and all of the things that you're going to share with us today. So I know you, but for those that are watching and listening, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm flattered that you did. Like you said, my name is Joe Watson. Originally from Texas, born in San Antonio, and lived there until 2008 when we moved to Colorado Springs to join an independent ministry that my brother-in-law and his wife were doing. And then in 2019, we moved to Phoenix, Arizona. And that's where you and I began to meet and discover each other's past and personalities and coming together. So I'm not sure how much more you want.
Well, tell us about your family. You are married?
Yes, I'm married and I have two grown sons. One of them we had to leave in Colorado Springs. His family's there and his career is there, but the other one who's older is still in Texas, living outside of Fort Worth with his wife and two little boys. That makes us grandparents. So we've got a granddaughter and two little grandsons that we're thrilled to be grandma and grandpa to. And then my father's passed on, but my mother still lives in Fort Worth with my brother, and I have two sisters, one in East Texas and one that just recently built a home in Montana.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
They're up at Flathead Lake in Montana.
That is good. So just talking about your history, and one of the things that I love about you is that you have a lot of stories that I'm sure a lot of people have never heard. And with you even talking about your family being in Texas, when you made the move from Texas to Colorado, how was that move for you?
Oh, well, like most Texans, I'm really proud of where I'm from.
Okay.
That's where a lot of Texas jokes come from, is the pride of Texas. So for my wife and I in 2008, we actually felt like the Lord was calling us to this opportunity to work in a ministry. And it wasn't that we were the face, we were the back office. We did the administrative, gopher stuff. And her brother and his wife were actually the traveling minister. So we weren't moving for fame, we were moving for work.
Got it.
And since we had both been born and raised in Texas, we had to really think about it, pray about it. Is this really what we're going to do? We're going to never had a residence outside of Texas.
Right.
So it was a big decision. It was the right decision. And a lot of life happened after 2008, but that was the decision we made. And we were told that we couldn't sell our property or anything. 2008, the real estate market crashed, and we had two houses and some acreage, and we were told, oh, you'll never sell that, but God is good. It's all sold, and we pulled up stakes and hitched up our wagon and headed north.
Wow.
Ended up in Colorado Springs.
That's amazing. So just to digress for just a second, when you made the decision that you knew you were going to leave Texas and go to Colorado, you said you knew it was the right decision. How did you know it was the right decision for you?
Well, since we're believers, we did a lot of praying.
Okay.
And we had an internal peace about it. And then just like I referenced about the real estate market, there were too many things that just fell into place.
Okay.
I had my wife and I purchased a home for her mother. So we had a mother-in-law house that needed to sell. And we sat in the house and prayed over it and got a contract that very next week. The home that we were living in with the acreage, like I said, we were told that we wouldn't sell it for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we listed that in June. And in September, we had 2 offers, and we closed on one first week of September and walked away with cash in hand.
Wow.
And so from June to September, we had everything fell into place. Our younger son was in high school. He needed to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And the little guy is so smart that he did his senior year of high school in 3 months.
Wow.
He would actually tell you it was 3 days. He's a whiz on the computer, and they let him use the computer, and he finished all of his classes. So we didn't have that trying to figure out how he was going to finish high school, either in another state or long distance or something. He got it finished before we moved.
That's awesome. That's
so
good.
there was things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that to our natural way of thinking, it would not work, but it did. And
Got
so
it.
that was like, okay, it's the right thing to do.
That's perfect. That's good. So you arrive in Colorado Springs and you begin to get your footing as far as serving in the ministry that you were going to. So how was that process? This was all new. You knew that this was the right decision. Things had started to fall into place. How was that journey? Was it all wonderful when you got there?
Oh, wow. Actually, we had started our portion of the ministry as far as she was doing the book work, and I started out duplicating tapes, cassette tapes, but it turned into CDs. But I was doing a lot of CD duplication and binding workbooks and doing some of the labor stuff. So it was already happening before we moved. It was what precipitated the move.
Okay.
Because my brother-in-law wanted his ministry to be located in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
I even took him out on the back 4 acres and said, I'll build you a building. He's like, no, Colorado Springs.
Okay.
So that's where we went.
Okay. And so you served there up until 2019?
2016.
2016. So what happened in 2016? This was the right decision that you had left Texas to go to Colorado Springs. And then in 2016, what happened?
Oh, in 2014, the church we were attending at the time, I went to one of the elders there and had lunch with him and said I felt like that the Lord was calling us into something greater, that we were going to be moved up. And he gave me some really good advice and told me that God would bring everything around me to, verify and solidify that, to give us direction. So in 2016, my wife and I felt like the Lord was leading us to go to Charis Bible College, which is located there in Colorado. And so we sold our all-American house and was provided with a small 2-bedroom, cabin up in Woodland Park where Charis Bible College is located. And we made the move and became students. Wow. In our 60s, we became students again. And we went through 2 years and graduated, and then we did a 3rd year in there in Woodland Park, and then moved here as interns because there's a Charis Bible College extension in Phoenix. And so we did 1 year. We actually did 4 years of training. Okay. And that's what brought us to the Phoenix area.
Oh, that's amazing. So that's a huge commitment that in your 60s that you decided to leave a position that you left your family originally for, went to Colorado Springs, and then felt led to start becoming students at 60. How was that?
That's faith. Yeah. We, I guess by American standards, we were retired. We were on Social Security. Right. And that's the time where most Americans think that you just kick back and go play golf or run around and do games or
Right,
whatever.
right.
Right. So take life easy. But we retired from the secular world and kind of got refired into something more fulfilling, more challenging, but more
Right.
fulfilling as well. And in that process, we just there were so many things. Once again, we had the challenge of selling real estate that sold for more than we expected. Then we had a need for housing, and the rental in the local area there was very expensive. And we had a real estate agent that said, "Oh, there's a USDA program you can get in for zero down." And so we just started making payments, which was lower than the rent, and had a house.
Wow.
So things like that. And then we had people pay for our tuition that we went to pay, and they said, "Oh, you don't know, come back next month."
Wow.
We had no idea who did that, but somebody helped pay our tuition. And so there was so many things like that just fell into place that all we could do is follow.
Wow. So, Joe, I hear everything that you're saying. I mean, I know the different challenges that come across regular, everyday people when they're talking about this is what I want to do and this is the plan that I have, and leaving what's familiar to become an exception. It's an exception for you guys to go back to school at 60 years old, and it's an exception for you to move from one place to another. But one thing that I know about you, and I'd love for you to talk about, is the faithfulness that comes with what you understand you're supposed to do next. What does that faithfulness look like?
Oh my. It looks like living life one day at a time.
Nice.
There were quite a few challenges to trying to go to school. My wife actually died in 2017 while we were students. She came down with a what we call a crud, the sinus infection and things like that happen. And I was a student, a Bible student, and I was supposed to know what to do, but I did everything wrong. After a couple of weeks, she went to the doctor and got a prescription that was supposed to help clear that up, and it didn't. She went back to the doctor a second time, and he gave her what he called a stronger antibiotic. And that antibiotic was so strong it actually stopped her heart the next morning.
Wow.
On her third dose, she laid her head down on the table and was gone.
Wow.
And so I was at the back of her head. I couldn't see her face. I walked around the table to see her face, and her eyes were rolled back, and there was nobody home. I pushed her up, and I thought, well, she had a stroke, or what should I do? And I thought, oh, maybe I should call 911. So as I'm reaching for my cell phone and holding her up with one hand, it just welled up in me. And I said, Jesus, I need you now. And she come back.
Wow.
So I was a widow for 90 seconds.
Wow. Wow.
But it was things like that that solidifies where we were and what we were doing. The path we were on was right for us, is where we were supposed to be. And so that's, it's hard to miss your grandchildren and your children and siblings, the family and everything you're familiar with. But it's also reassuring to have so many occurrences that says, no, this is the right place. This is the right time. You just keep doing what I told you.
Wow. So it's amazing, all of the things that you've gone through. And I know that there's lots of stories that you can share with us. But to the people that are listening that maybe have a relative or, a relative that's over 60 or 60 plus, or have young people that are listening that maybe they have that urge or sense of what they're supposed to do, what God is calling them to, what would you say to them? What would you encourage them to do?
Be calm.
Be calm.
Be calm.
What does that look like?
Keep going. It looks like even if you have feelings that are saying the contrary, to seek out the truth of what's really, really going on. And my siblings have been very supportive
Nice.
of wife and myself, and hers have too. There wasn't anything that they brought out like you shouldn't or you couldn't or how could you. There was nothing like that. They've been very, very supportive and helping us to often get past some of those homesick times.
Got it.
When you're like, oh man, I'm way out of my element. I'm in the unusual place. So, yeah, if it was one of my sisters or my brother that did it, I would try to support them and not be too negative.
Right.
You know, you want your family to be cautious when they're doing something,
Right. Right.
but yeah, never speak fatalness over their actions.
Did you guys receive that type of response from some people as you were making these steps in your life? Did you receive anybody being negative or condescending or judgmental about what you were saying you
Not
were going to do?
not
Okay.
personally, but where we went to school, there's a
Mhm.
wide age range, and I, personally met people and talked to some that their relatives and friends thought they had lost their marbles.
Right.
And so I heard stories. I didn't experience it directly myself, but I heard stories about family and friends that were very unsupportive and derogatory towards those who were making a decision.
Right.
Because yeah, it's a big deal at 60, but it's also, if you're in the middle of your career and you're
Absolutely.
35, 45 years old and you suddenly say, well, I'm going to quit this job, move my whole family to Colorado and
Right.
go to school. There's people out there that would really question that and say,
Yeah.
no, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
That can't
Right.
be right.
So, do you think that you have become comfortable with being uncomfortable?
I don't think you ever get comfortable being uncomfortable, but there is a point that you're more accustomed
Mm-hmm.
to the discomfort.
Got it. Got it. So now you're here. You're in Arizona. You guys graduated. Congratulations.
Thank
You
you.
have all of that. And your trajectory is now here, serving with me in church here in Chandler, Arizona. What does that look like? Like, where are you going from here?
Um, I don't know where I'm going from here because I really don't have a vision beyond here. I'm very excited to see what God's doing at Word Life Church.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thrilled with the favor that God has given me with you and Pastor Freddie. And right now, I'm just so caught up in what's tomorrow going to hold? What are we going to plan for? How are we going to reach people in the Chandler, Arizona area for Jesus Christ?
Right.
And what does that look like? So it's the focus for my life right now is right here in this area.
That's awesome.
Maybe someday we'll do something different, but not in the close foreseeable future. We're right where we're supposed to be.
Great. I love that you said that you're excited. And I think that there's so many people, and this world is so crazy right now, that people haven't honed in on their particular walk, their particular path, what it is that they are supposed to do. There's a lot of momentum to kind of follow a trend or do what they see on social media or what people on the news talk about. But there are people that are doing their own path and their own thing. But I know there's a lot of people that need the encouragement to be able to step outside of the trend or the mode of what other people are doing and really define for themselves what their path looks like, where they're going. So I just know that it's just time well spent to talk with you and other people that have made the decision, the right decision for them as far as moving, relocating, and starting again. And starting again. So, I commend you. That's awesome. It's wonderful to be able to hear your stories and be encouraged by what you've gone through and what you're going to go through. So, your sons, you mentioned that you had two sons and your grandchildren. What do your sons think about the decisions that you guys have made when you relocated and now?
That's a good question. um, there wasn't an in-depth conversation.
Okay.
However, um, both of our sons have been very supportive. There have been times where they would contribute financially.
Nice.
They've always received us back for visits with open arms and lots of love. And so their interest level is what's going to happen next. You know, it's more. I think they believe we're on an adventure, and they probably respect that it's for my wife and I. It's our time of life to be able to do that.
Sure.
Because they're grown and have families of their own.
Right.
And so that relieves us as parents the responsibility of our children. But we still like to get back and play with the grandkids when we can.
Absolutely.
As much as we can. So they've been very respectful, very supportive, and loved us through the moments.
That's good. I know it's not always easy to be away from your family, basically from your home in Texas. Do you still have that separation of being here in Arizona and not with your family in Texas?
Well, yes, to be blunt.
Yeah.
But I believe that God reinforces that and gets us past it, because it's only moments.
Right.
It's not something that is a weight that we constantly carry around. It's just sometimes thinking back about what used to be. I mean, we can always remember, back in the good old days, but actually, the good old days weren't quite that good. We're in the best days right now.
I like that.
So
I like that. So explain that a little bit more for people that don't understand that. When you say the good old days are right here, right now, what does that mean?
That means that right now is the time of life, regardless of where you are in your life. If you're still an adolescent or your great grandma and great grandpa throughout that, today is the day to live life. Today's the day that things are going to happen. The good old days are really gone, and you can't change them. Your memory might make them a little bit sweeter, but what happened is done.
That's right.
And the only way to influence the future is what you do today. So the good days are right now, today, and what we decide for today is where it's going to make a difference in the future.
That's good. That's a lot of wisdom you're speaking there, sir.
Thank you.
That's a lot of wisdom. That's really good. So with your boys being there, watching your lives, have they made a change in their life that you were able to support for them? Whether it was, relocating, because I know one's in Colorado and one's in Texas. So your son that's in Colorado, was that a move that he felt led to do that was a right decision for him?
Well, he was the one who was in high school when we, in 2008, when we made the decision. So he was kind of with us, making the move with us. But then he went to the university there, got his degree, met and married a young woman and had a child. And so he began to put down his own roots and make his life as he grew into adulthood in Colorado Springs. So he kind of doesn't even think too much about Texas. As a child growing up there, but as an adult making his own family, he's 100% in Colorado Springs. The older one actually did in 2009 follow us to Colorado Springs, but it never really fit. It was a struggle for them. He and his wife lived there for a couple of years. And they struggled the entire time financially and socially. So they ended up going back to Texas, which was a good decision for them, because now they have flourished and given us the 2 grandsons, and their careers has taken off, and they're doing quite well. And so we get to talk to them, and we're very proud of the family that they have made.
That's awesome.
Even though it is separated from the others, they're not together, but that's okay. We can still get to see them.
Right. And the grandchildren are the best no matter what. We agree on that, right?
The best.
The best. I mean, no better than that. That's our work our reward for all of the work that we did
There
with
you
our
go.
children. That's good. So, speaking of careers, just kind of transitioning a little bit, I know that you mentioned that you helped your brother in law in the ministry in Colorado, and then you all became students yourself. And right now, I know that you are working at Word Life Church and helping with ministry relations. So, how the ministry and the community relate with one another, reaching out to other ministers and all that. Did you ever think, as a younger person, when you were going through school and all that, that this would be your job now?
No,
No?
no, it wasn't on my plans.
What was on your plan?
Um, well, I've always been the kind of person that I guess was a thrill seeker or somebody who
Okay.
wanted to do things to was maybe a little bit risky.
Okay.
I decided at a very young age that I was going to drive everything I could get my hands on. And from the age of 19 to now, I have flown an airplane.
Wow.
I've ridden multiple different sizes of motorcycles, from the smallest to the largest. I've driven every kind of vehicle that you can imagine, from the early Volkswagen Beetle all the way up to 18-wheelers, dump trucks, things like
Wow.
that. And I've been a limousine driver, a school bus driver. So I've covered almost everything that goes down the highway. Plus, in 2014, I got the opportunity to go to the racetrack and jump in a NASCAR and make some laps
Oh my goodness.
at over 150 miles an hour. So
Oh, wow.
we've gone slow and we've gone fast. It's been a thrill.
That's awesome. So, you being the thrill seeker, driving everything as you continue this journey, now you are embarking on reaching out and becoming a community liaison in the church community. Is that still thrill seeking?
Yeah,
What's
because
thrilling about
because
that?
what's been put in my heart
Okay.
is the thrill of people's reaction
Nice.
to maybe not be driving at 150 miles an hour or flying in an airplane,
Uh-huh.
but to see how people process concepts and ideas, and to introduce them to things they might not have ever thought about. And sometimes you get rejection, but the reward comes when they have that aha moment,
Nice.
when the light bulb comes on and they're like, yeah, I think I think I agree with that. And their life moves forward for them to be a better person. And so that's equally thrilling
Yes.
as going fast on a racetrack.
That's
just,
awesome.
my kind of thrill seeking now is a little different, but it might not be so less dangerous, because sometimes rejection comes hard.
This is true. This is true. That's awesome. I didn't know that about you, about flying an airplane. I love it. It's amazing all the different skills that we have and what we're able to do when we put our mind to it. I like it. I like it a lot. What would your wife say is your best quality? Your wife, Wanda,
Oh,
who's my
wow.
good friend. What would she say your best quality is?
Being calm in a storm.
Nice. That's very good. That's very good. Seems to be a theme. You were talking about people to be calm, so you're calm in a storm. That's awesome. And you showed that with the whole situation with her, where you were able to grab on to what it is that you knew to do in order for her to come back to life by calling on the one that we believe in. That's awesome. Very, very good. What would your son say about you as your best quality?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think maybe being fair and not judgmental.
Nice. Well, dealing with the people that you deal with in the church community, being non judgmental is helpful in order for them to be able to see where they are and where they're going. So that's awesome. Those are good qualities to have. So, I mean, you're just a valuable asset, to us. We're very grateful for you and your wife and just how you guys are. It's amazing to get an understanding of people when they go through different transitions in their life and what adds to them. Out of everything that you spoke about, just with the relocating and working for different ministries and just all of what you've done, can you identify something that was really super hard for you to go through?
Super hard.
Yeah, that you would be like, wow, that was a real hard time in our life.
Oh. Well, I mentioned one of the most uncertain times was with my wife. I think mostly the questions that come through is making the decision to sell your house
Yeah.
and leave your home, especially when it's the only one you've ever known, brings about challenges, questioning not maybe what you heard in prayer, but questioning your own self as to what am I doing? What am I doing?
Right, right.
So that as a personal challenge, that would probably be one of the biggest ones, is to say, okay, I know I should do this, but I really don't want to.
Right.
And to step out and do it anyway.
Right.
Because a lot of times we get called to do things that we don't see the way. We don't see the how am I going to do this, but we're called to step out.
Right.
And so that's where we brings in faith, because Lord, I don't see it, but you better make it, because here we go. I'm stepping out.
Right. Exactly. And as you said before, that you're believing that you're calling into something greater, and being excited about it makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're definitely an asset to us. We couldn't do it without you, and so grateful that we don't have to. So thank you for spending some time with me and making sure that people know that time well spent is a time in prayer and reflection, and making the decision to do what God would have you to do, not just what you think you should be doing. Very good.
Thank you.
Awesome. So at this time, usually in every interview that I have, I often give my guests the opportunity to ask me a question. So it's just not an interview, but a conversation. So if you have a question, you can feel free to ask it now. And if you don't, it's okay. You don't have to ask a question. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. What's your question?
You and Pastor Freddie lead a church in Chandler, and I think you do an awesome job.
Thank you.
You asked me about my future. I'm going to ask you, where do you see this going?
Where do I see the church going?
The church and what you're involved in.
So let me kind of just say this about the church. I am not a visionary. I've never been a visionary to say this is how things are going to be. I know that my husband is. So what I'm really good at is I'm good at being a taskmaster. So I'm good at whatever's put before me. So to be fair, to answer that question about where the church is going, I believe that as we continue to be good stewards over the little, that God will make us rulers over much. And what that much looks like, I don't know. But what I feel that it is just more efficient, to where we're not only reaching people, but we're helping people make better decisions for their life in order to have more of what God would have for them. And I believe as we continue to do that, that He'll expand what it is that we're doing. So our own building, more people, and just more support for the community. More support so that people will be able to come into the church and not only hear good teaching and praise God, but for them to have resources or connections to help them with their life, whether that's jobs or, pregnancy center, all of those things. So that's what I think our future will look like. Although I can't tell you I can see it that way. I just know what I would feel like I would want it to be. So I think that's where we're heading. And then the rest of the details you'd have to ask my husband, because he knows. I wouldn't know. Did I answer your question?
Pretty good.
Good. Oh, pretty good. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for being here today. I mean, I love talking to you. I think that There's so much that people in our society, and you made the point of saying, in American society, a lot of people consider people that are 60 and above that they're retirement or that they're elderly or whatever label that they want to give you. I think you're walking wisdom. Your wisdom actually makes a difference with people that are trying to understand where they're going. You have a path that we can point to show us how to get there. And so I think it's very, very valuable what you say and what you have to say. And I think it's valuable for people to not underestimate the wisdom that you walk in and other people in their life walk in, but to add to the wisdom with being a recipient and apply the wisdom that you have in our lives. So you've taught me already a couple of things, and I hope that someone's listening was able to hear something that made a difference for them. And so we're just so grateful for each and every one of you that are tuned in today, that are listening, that are watching. I think just with my conversation with Mr. Watson here, that there are people in your life that you can listen to, that it is time well spent to sit before them or with them or reach out to them so that they can share stories that make a difference. Our center and our focus here at Resilient Living is to talk about all the things that you go through to get to that wisdom. And Joe had some really good points to share that the wisdom that he gained was because of his decision to do what God told him to do. And based on that direction, everything was provided for him. Not always good experiences, but great experiences because of the wisdom that you're able to apply to your life. So, we're grateful for each and every one of you listening and watching. Until next time.